Alright, so you guys can imagine how excited I was when I found out that season 2 is finally coming. And honestly, I can't really tell you guys much about my history with season 2. All I know is that it was happening, I got excited, what each episode would be about, or the titles. It waited a long time, and when I found out about them, I was hyped, but there wasn't much information about them. And I saw leaked photos on them, but that was basically it. So, when I found out that the episode would be coming out every day for the holiday season or all in 1 week, well, you can imagine how excited I got. The problem was that I had to wait each day for a new episode. So instead of waiting a whole week to binge watch the whole season, I instead just watched them as they went on along the week. So now that we basically have my history in, sorry if it's just way too short, we're gonna finally talk about What If Season 2. So What If Season 2 Episode 1 is, well, we see Nebula basically join the Nova Corps in some way, shape, or form. So this is the events of Guardians of the Galaxy, the first movie, where in this movie, Ronan does in fact get the Power Stone, but to protect the Nova Corps, the Nova Corps basically, no, Xandar closed itself off from the rest of the universe, and as a result, the inhabitants inside had to adjust to being trapped on a planet for a really long time. And after Yondu is killed, well, Nebula makes a team of her own to investigate who killed Yondu, and that's the whole episode. So this episode is two things. One, another whodunit episode, but in cyberpunk. In cyberpunk, in the Marvel universe. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. This wasn't a good return to the series. I did love that they made this what if scenario, but this wasn't the what if scenario I wanted. Around the time that the series went on after season 1, you're gonna find out there were a lot of what ifs that everyone wanted that we didn't get, and if we did get it, it wasn't what they were expecting. And this is one of the episodes that plays it off amazingly, and this is just not one of them. I did like this episode. I did love the twists and turns, and we get to know more of Nebula's character, at least in this version of the universe. But in the end, it was nice to see all these characters. It was nice to see Groot. It was nice to see Howard the Duck. It was nice to see all these characters, including Korg and Meek. But it just didn't feel like the best episode to start season 2. So all in all, it just wasn't what I wanted. It just wasn't what we wanted. And I still enjoyed it. It just wasn't what we wanted. So the next episode, it's so in this episode, it plays the events of, actually, you could say it plays in the events of Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor, Captain America, a lot of events because of the characters that are in this. So the Avengers assemble really early, but because much of the Avengers don't really have their powers from the first movie, or doesn't exist yet, or hasn't thought out yet, we have a totally different team of Avengers to defend Earth from Peter Quill, because in this universe, Ego comes to get Peter Quill instead of Yondu and tells him about his family heritage and comes to Earth to attack. And as a result, world governments makes the Avengers early on in the universe. So the roster is actually pretty cool. So we have the Winter Soldier, we have Thor, we have Ant-Man, Goliath, Black Panther, and we also have Marvel. I think that's her name. She has Captain Marvel's powers, kind of, and in that episode, I actually like this episode. This was a really interesting Avengers episode because we had at least one member of the team with a bunch of other members that a lot of people wanted to see in their prime. We wanted to see Hank Pym as Ant-Man. We wanted to see Black Panther. We wanted to see Winter Soldier, kind of. Not really. Okay, so Winter Soldier was still mind controlled, and he was tasked by Hydra to kill Peter. But it's also revealed in the episode that Peter he's not really a bad guy. He's just a kid, you know? So the fight. So a fight to save Earth and protect Peter Quill basically became the Avengers' new objective. So a lot of the stuff happens all at once, and even though it does happen all at once, it doesn't feel rushed. So at the end of the day, when the big three of the team, I like to think is the big three, which is Goliath, Black Panther, and Thor, is fighting a sand clone of egos. It was actually a really good fight. We also have a subplot where the Winter Soldier has a shot on Peter, but then he breaks out of it. Not only that, but he also has free will and then walks away. I do also like when the Avengers that we have now after this episode goes off to continue their mission as Avengers. That was actually a really good episode. So season two didn't start off well, but episode two of the season kind of brought me back. It didn't lose me. I was still interested in all the episodes. I just wanted to see how it was going to go down. So, episode three is Happy Hogan. And the episode is basically Die Hard, but in the Marvel Universe. So, you know. So, Justin Hammer takes over the Avengers Tower, and it's up to Happy Hogan to save the Avengers Tower. He gets injected with the Hulk serum, and he basically becomes like a purple Hulk and becomes Hulk Hogan. I just realized what that means. Oh my gosh. They could have been more creative than that. Anyway, and while the Avengers are doing their thing in Christmas, Happy Hogan is trying to save Avengers Tower from Justin Hammer, and all in all, it was a pretty good episode. It doesn't take itself seriously. It's actually pretty funny. Once again, this is just not an episode I was asking for, especially when Happy becomes the Hulk. And, you know, like I said, it's just not an episode I wanted to see. So let's go to the next episode, which is basically Planet Hulk, but with Iron Man. So in this episode, Tony Stark successfully saves Earth alongside the Avengers after nuking the Shatari headquarters ship. Unfortunately, the portal opens too fast, and as a result, Tony crashes in Sakaar and is forced to celebrate his arrival because Grandmaster makes him stay. So as a result, he has to try to find a way to escape, and a lot happens. Gamora comes to kill him. He finds out that she's connected to Thanos. Thanos, who was the one who led the Chitauri army. And I actually love this episode. It was nice to see a what if episode with Tony Stark where he doesn't die. And it was amazing to see it. When I saw the armor in season 1 and we didn't see this episode in season 1, you can imagine how disappointed I was when I found out the episode was cut. It was weird how they finished 9 episodes, but they didn't have time to finish that episode and put it in. They could have just delayed the season so they could get that episode in and then release it before episode 9. But they didn't do that, and you can imagine how mad I was. It's also weird how easy it is to kill Thanos, because I do believe he died like 2 times in the series so far with this episode. And I did actually like that Fast and the Furious in space race. Okay, maybe that's not what it was, but I really did like it. We also get a team up between Iron Man and Korg, which was actually amazing. I love the dynamic between Iron Man and Valkyrie as well. All these team ups and all these interactions were amazing, and I really liked where this episode was going. The only question is, how come Tony Stark didn't go home? Because it felt like he had the equipment he needed to go home, especially after he killed Thanos. Which means that the events of Infinity War won't happen in his universe now. But it's just weird that he didn't come home. But then you watch the 9th episode, and it seems like he's fighting a totally different threat that's bigger than Thanos. And it's weird that we didn't see a continuation to that either. So that's just my personal opinion. So the next episode is, what if Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper, which is basically Captain Carter's a Winter Soldier. So in this episode, Captain Carter continues her mission after saving the multiverse in episode 9, and she discovers the Hydra Stomper and discovers that Steve is still alive. And there's a lot of things that happens. We see an old Bucky Barnes and Peggy Carter. Oh wait, no we don't. No we don't. Sorry, messed up. We see an older Bucky Barnes where he's trying to kill Bucky and tries to remind him that it's his best friend. We see the Red Room. We see them fight the other Black Widows, and I really like this episode. I just felt like we should have saw more, not more. what am I trying to say? I did like the continuation, but the problem was that what is the problem? It felt like we got too much and not enough. You get me? Like we got all of this, but then what I felt like was supposed to happen didn't happen in this episode. And even though the episode ended off in a somber note, it just felt like we didn't get enough in the episode. So all in all, it was a good episode. It was nice to see that things went well, but then didn't went well. But well, you basically know the rest. So the next episode is actually not a what if episode, but more of an introduction episode to a new character that isn't in the comics but was made for the TV series named Kaori. And she discovers the space stone after going in the ocean, and now she has the ability to run super fast and has telekinesis and basically fuse her people. Okay, I'm not gonna say nothing, or I'm not gonna say much about this episode because this what if episode doesn't really explore any what if scenarios. It just introduces us to a character. This episode is basically her origin story, which they could have just made into an actual movie alongside another character, because that's what they did with not Kamala. America Chavez with Doctor Strange 2. So they could have done this with any other movie that was coming out around this time. So all you're gonna get out of me with this episode is that this is a waste of time. If you want to know why she's there, you can watch it and then watch the finale because it does connect very well. But as far as things go, that's all you're gonna get with this episode. So the next episode is basically Thor Ragnarok and Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, because these two movies are what if this episode is a what if scenario between the two films. So we all know that Hela was banished by Odin, but instead of being banished to wherever she was, she ended up banished to Earth just like Thor. And it's basically Thor but with Hela, and instead of Hela falling in love with Jane, she basically has a romantic interest with the Mandarin. And I honestly really liked that episode. It kind of frames Odin as the villain. When you really think about it, he does have that villain tendency in him. So you can imagine how easy it was to frame him as the antagonist, even though the heroes were following our villains in their respective films as well. But the overall development between Hela and the Mandarin was actually really great in this episode. I loved it. It was nice seeing Hela just work as a team and value human life in others other than herself. And as a result, she basically becomes one of the most powerful characters on the good side, even changing the Mandarin into a good guy as well, I guess. And I did actually like how the episode ends with them charging around the universe, saving people, doing what she was supposed to do with this power. So all in all, I actually did like this episode. It was a weird what if scenario, and it went weird ways, but it still explored a what if scenario in ways that I actually did enjoy. So this episode was actually really great as well. So the next episode is Avengers, but it's set in 1602. So basically, it basically tells us what happens if the Avengers were formed in medieval times. So in the Avengers, some multiversal event is happening. Two things happens. One, Captain America from an alternate timeline during the events of Infinity War messes with the time stone, sending him into another timeline. And two, Captain Carter fails to save Thor's mom, and as a result, Thor becomes basically the villain of this episode. A lot happens in this episode, which is just amazing. We see a Robin Hood-esque team comprised of Iron Man and Ant-Man and a bunch of other characters. And I really did like this episode. It was a weird take, and it took itself weird, but I kind of liked that direction because this felt like another example of what if is supposed to be. And in my opinion, I do feel like they should have went something a little more, but in the end, after watching the episode again, I did actually like this what if scenario. There's not really much to say because of what happens here. Like, we do see what happens to these characters in this world. Like, Scarlet Witch is the castle wizard or mage or whatever you want to call her in this time. Hulk is caged away because of his powers, and Hulk Hogan, yes, happy Hulk Hogan exists in this episode as well. And Ant-Man can actually actually shrink in this universe, and with that said, that's all I can really say about this episode. It wasn't my hyped episode. There's really nothing to really talk about with this episode. But in the end, I did actually enjoy the episodes. There's nothing really to say, but there's really nothing to complain about. Maybe they could have added something else to it. Maybe do what the Avengers did, but instead they did it in medieval times. Like they did the Loki invasion, but in 1602. I think they could have done that with something new in that spin. But all in all, it was still a good episode. It did lead into the final episode for season 2, and it is What If Strange Supreme Intervenes. So in this episode, Peggy Carter is contacted by Strange Supreme for her help. I mean, he needs help from her so that he can capture an anomaly, but then realizes the anomaly they are catching is Kahori, and she is actually the victim, as Strange Supreme is the villain of this finale. So, a lot happens here. So, apparently, Doctor Strange is trying to use his knowledge to recreate the universe that he destroyed, which is his own, and in doing so, he captures people from each and every other universe and kills them so that he can make his universe back, and not only that, but also so that he can recreate Christine. And this results in a huge Secret Wars-esque battle where heroes and villains, villains and villains, heroes and heroes fight each other for no apparent reason other than the fact that they were taken and is trying to escape. And as a result, we see Marvel Zombies return, Scarlet Witch Zombie return, Infinity Killmonger return, as he kills Thanos again with the snap, and his power is taken away, and now he is back in the battlefield. And we see Captain Carter use a multitude of weapons across the MC universe, and very much take on Strange Supreme. So this was a really weird finale. This isn't what I wanted. I was hoping that they were gonna recycle what the season 1's finale was, but with updated characters. So basically characters that we didn't get to see. So most of the Avengers from the early days, most of the Avengers from 1602, Hela or the Mandarin, Hydra Stomper, finally add Tony Stark from Sakaar, but they didn't do that, so it was an overwhelming and insane finale, but still a disappointing one, to say the least. But in the end, I was still very excited for Season 3, as Season 3 was confirmed to be the final season, so I was wondering what they were going to do. But as far as things go, there wasn't really much to really put in once you binge season 2 as a whole. Season 2 isn't the worst so far, but rather instead it's the most mid of the 3 seasons that we got as a whole. Like right now, season 1 is the best season, and season 2 is just the mid season. And I'll tell you guys what I think about season 3 when we get to season 3. So for right now, that's all I'm going to say. Here's my rating. I'm going to give the stories a 6 out of 10 because, once again, it's because of these episodes that my love for the series dies down, but still stays and remains because of the other what if scenarios that are actually very interesting. And I'm going to give season 2 in general a 7 out of 10, unfortunately. So that's my rating.